from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me, Ron Green from Kungfu.ai. You are the CTO there, Ron. So thank you very much for joining me. The way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. Tell us a little more about, your journey, your background, and what you're currently up to. And then we're gonna take it from there. Just, a hint to our audience. We're gonna talk a lot, as you can imagine, about AI, about the trends, and some hints for entrepreneurs, maybe also in that domain. So, Ron, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really delighted to be here. I'll give a real quick brief background of myself. I've been in the tech industry now over 30 years. Kind of amazing to say that. I've got a background in computer science, and I did a master's in artificial intelligence way back in the 90s. I have people every now and then ask me, they're amazed I've been, in AI since before ChatGPT, and I'm like, man, I was back in AI when when Clinton was president. So been doing this a really long time. Call myself a serial entrepreneur. I've done 9 startups, most of those on the product sides. Kungfu.ai is a management consulting and engineering firm. So we basically help enterprises with their entire AI journey, whether it's, figuring out how to get started, how to hire, how to build a AI strategy roadmap, how to execute, how to actually build custom models, how to take advantage of the proprietary data they have to build predictive systems or generative systems, whatever it may be. We really can help them across that entire journey. And on a personal basis, I'm just as happy as possible to be professionally after working in AI in the 90s and seeing the promise, but never really quite being able to build production systems, right? We always lacked the data. We always lacked the compute. We knew we needed more. I don't think we knew how much more we needed. And we've spent the last 8 years at Kungfu.ai, helping our clients build production grade systems. And so I consider myself just very blessed and lucky to be doing professionally what I've always dreamed of.
Great, and thank you for being here with me today, Ron. Just out of curiosity, quick question: like, why Kung Fu? Like, why the name?
Yeah, that's a great question. All right. So we first off, you have to get a name that ends in .ai. So that's going to limit a little bit. But we also just wanted something really provocative and something memorable. And a lot of people think that Kung Fu means like martial art, but it doesn't. It's actually Mandarin, and it means any skill acquired through like hard work and discipline. And we thought that was a perfect encapsulation of what's needed to succeed in artificial intelligence.
That's interesting. Yeah, but the name, even when the team reached out to me, I said, okay, what these guys they do? But of course, I then checked. But to your point, yeah, these names should be rememberable also as well.
Exactly.
Now, to what you do today with companies, Ron. So you help them, as you mentioned, building the strategy, like taking that. You talked about data, and we always, when I discuss with my guest about AI, so the first thing comes to mind, of course, data and data readiness. Now, maybe kind of a traditional question, but because you've been in the field for a long time, we've been talking about digital transformation, getting our data for more than I would say 2 decades, very, very easily. Do you still think, like companies struggle in that field, or no, now because, with the AI imperative coming even from board level, you start to see companies are more ready, at least from data perspective, so they can, take that to the next level?
It's a great question, and it's a little bit of both. You know, the digital transformation initiatives have really made it much more easy to go into companies, and it's pretty rare we'll walk into a situation where they are not either fully in the cloud or are in the midst of some type of migration. So that helps a lot right there. The main thing we run into though is very often the data that is necessary to perform the type of AI modeling to build the type of AI systems that companies want. They may not have it either collected or available in sort of volumes that are necessary, or it's spread out. And so, the dominant technique within artificial intelligence right now, of course, is something called supervised learning, where you build models and you show them a bunch of examples, and they're labeled examples, meaning, here's an input and you know what the right answer is. So if you're trying to detect fraud, you would go get a bunch of, let's say you're trying to detect credit card fraud. You would collect a bunch of credit card transaction history, and you know which ones were fraudulent and you know which ones were legitimate. And you train a model to learn to identify the traits based upon things that maybe even as humans we don't know. The challenge is we will very frequently walk into situations where not all of that data is available, or sometimes they'll have expert processes where humans are performing tasks, but really all of the knowledge is in their head. And so the good news is all of those systems can still be built with AI. You can augment humans. You can eventually get there, but it does mean, I'd say, probably about 20% of the time, um, the enterprise needs to start collecting that data, or pulling that data together in a way where it's unified for training. But for the most part, just like you said, the good news is most enterprises have gone through the digital transformation and they are ready. They are ready, and there's so much low hanging fruit out there regarding AI initiatives that it's very rare we'll walk into a company and we can't find literally hundreds of meaningful AI initiatives that they could take on.
That's cool, Ron. Now, maybe a question I never asked before, but it came to my mind because some of the stuff that you do and what you just mentioned. Let me wonder. So we know there are like two aspects. So there's the business aspects of adopting an AI strategy, and there's the hands-on, what we do from adapting systems, maybe implementing LLMs or whatever the technology is. Now, what have you seen more successful with the businesses that you work with? Is it like when the imperatives come from up to down, let's say the board say, hey guys, like, everyone's talking about AI, we need to start to work on AI? Or is it the other way around, where the people who are on the ground, they start to understand the business cases, is that maybe AI, and then they go and they suggest to the board, the management,
Yeah.
like, okay, so which approach have you found? Or is it like a blend, a mix of both? Like, what have you seen successful?
All right. Nobody's ever asked me that question before, and I love it because it is very clearly the second. It's when it's sort of bottom up. When we've been doing this for like 8 years now, and all the clients we would work with in the beginning stage of our company's existence would come to us and they would say, well, first off, they had to be early adopters. They had to really have a hard problem they couldn't solve with traditional methodologies. And they would come to us and they would say, hey, would it be possible to, build a computer vision system to detect manufacturing deficits or something like that? And we would say, yeah, that's absolutely possible. Then ChatGPT comes out and everything goes crazy. I'd say for a couple of years, we were getting inbound requests all the time, like, hey, can you build us some AI? And we would say, yeah, sure. Well, what are you thinking? And they would say, oh, I don't really care, but the board is telling us we need AI. We need AI. And that is a terrible way to go about it because um, you are essentially, you have a hammer and you're looking around for nails, and everything starts to look like a nail, and you can waste a lot of time and a lot of money doing that. What's really much, much more effective is, and this is what our strategy team does, is when our strategy team embeds with the company, and it can be 6 weeks, it can be 3 months, depending on the complexity of the enterprise. They will go and talk to stakeholders across different departments and surface all the different initiatives. But then they're also vetting the data availability, because it's never been more true that garbage in, garbage out regarding data and AI. And then those initiatives then can be vetted for ROI, meaning don't just go do it because it's cool or interesting. Make sure it has a real business impact. And over and over and over again, we see that it's not the top down ideas, it's the bottom up ideas where all the real valuable initiatives come from.
And here I think this is where the company culture will play some role also as well. Because, if the culture is kind of that doesn't embrace people coming from the field, telling their first line managers, and then these first line managers, they take it up. So if you don't have this culture, I think things might not move at a fast pace. The other thing, but we know for a fact that there is this fear among even people were talking about, yeah, AI will replace the blue collar jobs. Now we're talking about AI replacing the white collar jobs also as well. So the balance between someone, let's say if I'm someone who works in the logistics department, or maybe in I don't know, operations department, and I see, there's a bottleneck that AI might solve, and with automation. But look, maybe I will lose my team, and if I lose my team, I will not. So how much is this, balance between going from this bottom up approach while also having in mind what we hear and see in the media, and from thought leaders sometimes, yeah, AI is replacing jobs. So there must be a balance there, Ron. What is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. It's really interesting. You bring up this really great point. I think most of us thought, when we finally got to this point in the history of the development of artificial intelligence, it might be blue collar jobs that were most effective initially, but it's really the opposite. It's like you said, it's white collar jobs, and probably the most effective broad use of sort of AI automation is with AI coding assistants. I think it's unbelievably ironic that uh you know it's the very sort of software work that makes AI possible, that those positions are being in some ways um automated first in the world. It's just unbelievably ironic to me. That said, I'm you know I say this only just slightly joking. Look, artificial intelligence is coming for all of our jobs eventually, right? And what I mean by that is we are going to get to the point during our lifetimes where we have AI systems with really broad general capabilities. Whether we'll get to artificial superintelligence, AI capable of performing not only all sort of human level intellectual tasks, and doing original scientific research, but going, far beyond human capabilities. That's I'm actually pretty optimistic about that, but that's less clear. What what I do, the way I think about this technology trend. There's nothing that any of us can do to stop it, because the benefits are so huge. Um, I really, truly would not be working in artificial intelligence if I didn't think that this is going to be a net benefit for society, for mankind, for the planet, and it's going to help um, cure diseases. It's going to help cure hunger. It is going to lead us into this world where um, eventually, when we have humanoid robotics, which I think are going to be in the next 10 years, where a lot of the back-breaking labor that humans perform right now can be done, by machines. And it doesn't mean that all of these humans are going to be unemployed and destitute. I think it's going to free up once there is more of everything. Scarcity will become less of a factor. And I know I'm getting, very philosophical here, but I really do believe that whether all of this will happen in our lifetime, I think this is where we're headed. And then so to kind of come back as far as, individual workers today, this is what I would say. At Kungfu.ai, we're really big believers in building AI systems that augment humans, that don't replace humans. And I would say almost without exception, all of the projects that we've done well over 120 production deployments at this point for companies. Almost without exception, if there's a human involved, we built a human in the loop system where the AI can do the boring, repetitive tasks, or it can do the tasks that allow a human to essentially get a second opinion, but ultimately the human is in the loop vetting the decisions, and there is a checkpoint on the system. And so I'm a really big believer, maybe 10, 20, 30 years from now, we can move away from that. But at this point, I'm not really interested in building systems to take people's jobs away. I'm interested in building systems that will make their jobs easier and make them more effective and more efficient.
Yeah, this is what I say, Ron, and I repeated it a lot of times. I write about it also. My humble opinion is go back to what humanity used to do before the Industrial Revolution. And I say, like, do impactful thing. And I ask people, like, have you ever tried to go to a farm one day? And they ask me why, and they say because because when I was a kid, like, it's not like a big farm, but we used to go like to these small farms where you see the farmers and they work in agriculture, and you feel this tie with what you do, and then you think, okay, I'm planting a seed today, it's gonna become, I don't know, like a fruit, a vegetable, whatever that, and then I gotta feed someone because I did this, right? And you take care during that. I said, like, wasn't this better than letting someone sit behind a screen all day, just doing repetitive tasks? And they hate it. Let's be honest, like, people hate doing these jobs, but yeah, they have no other choice. Of course, I know it's a little bit philosophical, but this is my take. Like, I'm not afraid of AI taking jobs, I would say, because as you said, it's gonna augment, elevate, taking us to the next level. So indeed, it's not there. You mentioned few terms which are interesting. You talked about super intelligence, AGI, and I know you say, like, generative AI is just the opening act. So what's Act Two? How does that look like? And are we
Yeah.
ready for it from business perspective?
Yeah. I think I think most people would agree that agentic AI is probably the really next big thing that's going to happen. It's got a lot of buzz, so it doesn't need me to hype it up. I'm overall, I'm very excited about agentic AI, and I think it's going to be very effective. We caution our clients strongly to be cautious on executing agentic AI systems and, frankly, generative systems for really the same reason. Generative systems can be incredibly powerful, but for the most part, generative systems really need a human in the loop still. There really does need to be somebody in there vetting the output for the most part. And the same thing with agentic AI. And the problem is the whole point of agentic AI, right, is that you are building systems that have some autonomy, that you can give them a high level task and they can work through uncertainty, make decisions, and accomplish goals. And so, by very definition, um, it will be making decisions not necessarily with the human involved. And so the failure rate there is just too high for most enterprises. I think that failure rate is coming down dramatically, and the not only the duration of the tasks that agents can complete is increasing exponentially. I think the most recent report that came out last month said that across sort of frontier models, there's a 50% success rate on tasks that are roughly about 80 minutes, 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. That's a giant improvement. But as you string together tasks, the chance of failure increases pretty significantly. So I'm very, very bullish on agentic AI, and that is, sort of deeply tied together with reasoning models. Personally, what I'm most excited about is what's going on with reinforcement learning on what's called verifiable domains, where we have empirical proof now that if you take high quality base pre-trained language models, and then you use reinforcement learning on verifiable tasks like programming, where you can give it a task, it writes a program, and then you can run the program to see if it works, you can test it, or you give it math questions and you can see if the answer is correct. On those verifiable domains, after a certain amount of training using reinforcement learning, there is this emergent behavior within these models. They literally develop emergent reasoning capabilities. And I think that's the thing that I'm most excited about in artificial intelligence right now, because that means that we have potentially, and I'm very confident about this, but I think we have potentially solved the data issue, because there is more and more evidence that using this technique, we will be able to have models not only solve problems, but then give themselves new unsolved challenges, test themselves, learn from it, and then enter this sort of feedback loop. And there's really, really strong evidence in just the last few months that that approach will work.
It's very exciting times with the agentic AI, and I'm fine with not only AI, with automation also as well. And I know it's not like agentic AI in the sense that you talked about. I was doing a test because I never had the time. But the other day I wanted to go back technical. I come from, it's been a while. I didn't touch anything. And I just tried like few things with like MCP servers and, all this stuff. And my mind was blown literally, because the amount of things you can do with the reasoning of the model, it's not like, you just say, hey, like, go check my schedule and give me a summary. You check, for example, you instructed to go to the CRM, for example, and say, hey, like, find, what was the main reason, like some of these, I don't know, deals were stuck for a long time. Check the emails, check everything, in our system. And then, it can come back with really good insights, and it asks
Yeah.
you if you want me to take actions. Do you want me to send an email? Do you want me to send a reminder? Should I put it as a task? And this is like, you have literally a wizard sitting next to you
It's
telling
true.
you what to do. So really, fantastic and amazing. And I'm excited also about it because, the you mentioned about like saving the time. And I always tell people, like, think about it from, time is money also as well. And, if you are able to save time on some of the, projects or tasks you are having on your plate, so it's absolutely fantastic. Now, you mentioned also about working with different businesses. So what industries are, let's say, seeing the most, let's call it, quite disruption because of all of that, Ron?
We gosh, another good question. We have worked so broadly. In fact, for years we have thought about um, the need to potentially specialize and just focus on certain industries. Like, should we focus on, retail, or, finance and banking, or um, I don't know, insurance or something like that. Um, I think because most companies are just now, even in 2025, they're just now really taking their first steps into adopting AI. We have found really broad benefits across all verticals. There's really no industry that I have experience with yet that um, can't benefit from it. And if you step back and think about it for just a little bit, it makes perfect sense. What is AI bringing to the table? It's bringing the ability to perceive, uh, in the way that humans can. So understand images and video and text and speech for the first time. Well, that's amazing. And what business couldn't leverage that? But it can also find patterns and identify really complicated correlations that might be beyond not only humans but other existing statistical approaches, and that those insights can be leveraged for your business. Again, who wouldn't want that? And when you couple these two together with many other things, we're seeing adoption everywhere. In fact, even within, let's say, agriculture, which, you might think that might be a laggard from this respect. Not at all. We have many, many clients within the agricultural space, and it is already revolutionizing the way farmers plant, how they manage the soil, how they identify pests and bugs, how they treat it, coupled with drones and satellite imagery. It's just completely revolutionizing that sector alone. So I feel like when AI can come to the table and affect a space as diverse as agriculture and banking, it's probably going to be applicable to your business, no matter what that is.
Cool. Now, one thing I wonder about when we talk about these different industries and building the systems, Ron, um, when it comes to the engineering part of it, and you know, so if you can walk us through maybe the phases they have. So I know, of
Mm.
course, they're gonna start from a business case or a use case where they want to build an AI product for that, and but then we start the actual thing. So I'm curious about like to understand, also like probably this will be initiatives coming from the CTO in the company. So what are the phases from identify? We talk about how to identify the business case, but I mean starting doing maybe a proof of concept
Mhm.
and then taking it to a like production
Yeah.
grade AI ready product or
Oh, I'm excited to talk about
solution.
this. Yeah,
Sure.
this is great. So when we started the company back in 2017, one of my big concerns was, is it going to be possible to even offer AI engineering services to companies? And the reason is really simple. As we talked about, most AI systems today are still supervised learning based. That means that you need data, you need labeled examples, you need inputs and the correct answer to go along with them. And that is not necessarily a given. So you're talking to somebody who wants to, let's say, build a predictive AI model. um, I can't know beforehand if they have the data, sufficient volume and quality to build a system. And the clients might even have certain sort of accuracy numbers. Like they may say, like, "Hey, we want to build a system to extract information from documents, but it has to be 96% accurate on handwriting recognition." And it's difficult to know if they have the data to accomplish this. So what we did was come up with a methodology that has worked fantastically over all these years, and I'm happy to share it. We break engagements down really into 4 stages.
Mm-hmm.
Once an initiative has been identified and vetted that if it was successful, there would be good ROI, we go and we do um, data exploration and analysis. We need to go and understand the data at a deep level. Is there enough data? Is from a quality and volume perspective? That can take as little as a week to, several weeks to do. Once you're done with that phase, and only when you're done with that phase, can you go to the next phase, which is sort of model prototyping. You take the data, but you don't know necessarily what all aspects of the data you need. You may have, if you're dealing with structured data, you may have thousands of columns, but not all of them really are bringing much information to the table. It may just be a handful that are really important. So it's sort of feature selection. But you also have different modeling approaches. Um, Unlike traditional software, it's not necessarily very clear exactly what the best architecture from a modeling perspective you should go with. So you prototype with the models, and you you come out of this phase and you understand exactly what architecture, exactly what data features, and probably most importantly, you come out knowing what your likely overall performance is going to be. So I will be able to go to a client and say, yes, I think we can hit 95, 96% accuracy, or no, we don't think we can. We can only hit, we think maybe 85, 86% accuracy. And each of these checkpoints de-risks the engagement. The third phase is the actual training of the model. You build, you train, you tune it. It can be very complicated. There can be parts of it that are not very scientific because we're still in the early stages of this. There's hyperparameter tuning. Sometimes these models, they're not deterministic, they're probabilistic. That's a good thing, but it also can make it challenging. And then once you're done and you have, and this is the bulk of the work by far, this is, 80% of the work. Once you have a model that you have thoroughly tested and you think is generalized with acceptable behavior in the domain you're in, then you can go to productionalization. And that varies wildly based upon the specific case. But those first three phases I mentioned are really unchanged no matter the vertical or the end goal that you're trying to accomplish.
So this is the baseline, and then after that it will be like just I like this approach because you build really a good foundation first before taking it to
Right.
to production later. And it looks like also you crack the code run so it works across multiple verticals, which is good, which is actually, yeah, like the only thing maybe it will differ, you know the way the interface probably, or maybe the core of the LLM itself, to your point like before about with the how you do the reinforcement,
The reinforcement
learning,
learning,
or yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So this is completely makes sense to me. Yeah, like this makes me excited also as well, because the way you do it, like it's kind of a customized AI application for customized use case within that vertical in that customer, which
That's
is,
exactly right. That's
yeah.
exactly right. Yes.
So that makes complete sense. And this is why I tell people that I'm not a consultant or an AI consultant, but people sometimes come say, like, you talk to a lot of people in the field, and they say, like, yeah, you need like to dissect it in a way. And thank you, Ron, because now I can I can use this approach and say, hey, or you go check the episode, because you dissected it in a very clear way where people can understand it in a layman terms. Let's put it this way. So really fantastic. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit, and you've been a serial entrepreneur yourself, also, Ron. Now, when it comes to startups, right? So, um, do you think startups nowadays, and I know you are a mentor also as well, so do you think startups nowadays are leveraging AI really the way they should be doing, or they're just following the hype, and yeah, let's just put an AI and say we are an AI company? What you're seeing from the work you do also with the startups?
Oh, that is yeah, I think it's difficult maybe to broadly
Sure.
characterize, all startups. So I would say, like almost any tech trend, when you're on that hype cycle, everybody all of a sudden is embracing it. It feels like, every new startup is now an AI startup. Um, I you mentioned I mentor, I do a lot of mentoring of early stage companies. A lot of companies are saying they're an AI-based startup when they're really not. It's really just more aspirational. Um, I like the idea fundamentally though. I think that if you are starting a company now from scratch, if you're building a startup and you have the opportunity to rethink without all of the legacy concerns that entrenched players have to deal with, and you can rethink from scratch how to build your product or services to put AI at the core, it is absolutely a no-brainer that you should do that, because it will change your entire go-to-market strategy. Just my one word of caution would be, don't let, your aspirations get ahead of what you are capable of doing. Be ambitious, but also be realistic. And don't I see too many early stage companies um, thinking that if they just fake it till they make it, that eventually a miracle will happen and the AI will become a reality. And they're kind of hollow at the actual core of the technology. That's the one mistake that I would deeply encourage early stage companies to avoid. Make AI the core of the way you think about it, but grounded in reality. And I think you can have the best of both worlds.
Cool. Now, one more thing. Like, is it now, in your opinion, especially I'm talking about not every company, but especially the companies who have to deal with a lot of data, they have to, you know,
Mm.
actually everyone have to deal with a lot of data nowadays. But I mean, when they're building their foundation, is it a must-have to have a machine learning or an AI engineer on the team? So this is the first. I know it's kind of a loaded question, and we started to see that this domain, mainly AI engineers, we have kind of a feeling we have scarcity because all what's happening, right? We saw like Meta trying to
Yeah.
get talents from competitions, and we're hearing, it's like the Wild West, right? So, as a startup, like if I'm a founder today, how should I prioritize hiring my AI engineers? Like, is it like necessity at the beginning? And what kind of maybe knowledge I should be looking for?
Mhm. I do think it is a necessity, because, if you follow the idea that you're gonna build a startup, in this day and age, and you're going to be sort of AI first, you're going to think about, um, building functionality and not layering on AI or adding in AI later. You're going to take an AI first perspective, which I really think, new companies should. Um, you really need people that have the ability to build those systems and handle all of the complexity of all the things we've talked about already. Um, unlike most of the tech transitions, the big moments that we've seen over the last 30 years. So if you think about the World Wide Web exploding in 1995, or the move to mobile after the iPhone development in 2007. AI is the third really giant technology movement during that period, but it's different because there is so much math and there is so much um, uh, intuition that you have to come into engagements with around how to manage and successfully train and build these very, very complex systems, these very complex probabilistic systems. The learning curve is much, much steeper than most software engineers are used to. So it's not like, hey, the iPhone just came out. I'm going to go learn how to build iPhone apps, or the web just came out. I'm going to go learn HTML and CSS. It is deeply, deeply complicated endeavors to build state of the art enterprise grade AI applications. So my advice is absolutely hire machine learning engineers that have production experience. There is, we always talk about the difference between like a proof of concept and a production application. There's never been a bigger gulf than between a proof of concept AI model that works like it's 60% accurate and one that can get to, 98% accurate for production. That can be years of work, even if getting to 60% took you 5 days. And so people underestimate the complexity of building production grade applications.
Cool. Just one thing, because you talked about software engineers and all that. Um, people are talking now that the infrastructure of AI is commoditized, like in a sense, like the LLMs, the models. It's just like matter of how you bring people that can train them. So is it like, do you think like really AI is commoditized now, or like no? Especially because I had a conversation the other day, and I think when the time comes to air both episodes, or the episode before this one, so we're talking about that software isn't like the mode anymore. It's like more on something else as well.
Mhm.
So we talk about deep tech, we talk about, merging the AI with, I don't know, maybe quantum computing, with blockchain,
Mhm.
with something like this. From you, me and you, Ron, like we've been here for long times. And, because always I give the same examples about the internet, the mobile revolution, and, the social revolution also as well. So if we want like to put kind of predictions, maybe, of course we don't have crystal balls, but for differentiation beyond software and beyond AI, what do you think, the next generation of startups would be disrupting in
Mhm.
which technologies?
Mhm. Um, this is a really difficult question because we're at the stage where, I think maybe 3 years ago, most people would have thought that the sort of frontier labs that were building, the most sophisticated large language models, that was gonna be the differentiation. It was who could build the smartest language model, the most capable model. And you could look at companies like, Microsoft or, AWS or Apple, who weren't building those models themselves. They might have been investing in companies, but they weren't building it, and it looked like it could be a liability. It could actually potentially, undermine their entire, value stack. Now in 2025, it seems pretty clear, at least at this stage, that there's parity on the frontier model level. And, if you're working with AWS, you can go through Bedrock and pick which one you want to use. And, it's not really so much of a differentiator anymore. And so my belief is that that's probably going to continue. I think that there is too much of a culture of sort of scientific sharing within the AI community. Um, Amazingly, a lot of the really interesting breakthroughs, have happened in China this year, and the researchers there have published the specifics of how they did that, unlike a lot of, American companies. And I think that's really really valuable. And so my guess is that it's going to be many years before things start settling down, and what companies should do is not worry about any one AI capability or any one model or some magic point where we're gonna hit AGI and now this one model can do everything. I think we're quite a few years away from that. And what I tell companies is, when I'm working and consulting with them, I tell them, you have proprietary data, and that is your competitive advantage. Don't worry about building $1 billion frontier model. Don't worry about the infrastructure and the power issues. Take the proprietary data you have and build capabilities that give you either, competitive advantage from new capabilities, streamline enterprise workflows, new predictive capabilities, new generative capabilities, whatever it may be. But that proprietary data, is gold in the landscape of against your competitors. And we see this over and over and over again at Kung Fu AI. Is you can go take this data that you've had for 20 years and build a system that can transform your business. I'll give you one example really
Sure.
quickly. We built a it took a couple of years, but we built a model, and it can do, a loan decisioning automatically, and it transformed this business from being, 48-hour decision times to 9 seconds,
Wow.
and fraud is down, chargebacks are down. And when they went public with this new model, and they're a publicly traded company, when they announced the release of it, they saw a $250 million increase in market capitalization because, they were taking this proprietary data and using it for competitive advantages.
That's fantastic, actually. Just, if I might suggest something, I didn't finish it yet. I'm halfway. Because you mentioned about before we talked about data, and you mentioned now about the China. So there's a book which I'm reading now called AI Superpowers by Kai Fu. Highly, highly recommended. I didn't finish it yet. I'm halfway, but this gives everyone, established companies and startups as well, exactly your point, Ron, where it's discussed like why China was able to have like a little bit advantage when it comes to AI. It all comes down, of course, the author described many things, but data is the main thing. And people would be surprised, like,
That's
because,
right.
he describes how, I don't want to tell all the whole book, but, it's like we used to think of Chinese companies as they just copy what they see abroad, but it ended up with time because the mass population, the mass data they have, so they were able to have more data that, you know, US companies, European companies have, and they are like mainly in the fields that touch human beings every day. So ride sharing, food delivery, just to name few, transactions, wallets. And guess what? Like this give them a huge edge. So this is why when I start to think about it from a startup or like even a established business perspective, to your point, Ron, yeah, your data should be your sacred place, and you should try to also think, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, how we can get more data that can be useful for us. So maybe there are some data points we're not collecting today, we're not
Right.
monitoring. How we can bring this and maybe find a correlation with that. So 100% on this one. Um, Ron, as we are almost come close to an end, any final thoughts? Anything that maybe I should have asked you, I didn't, you want to share, and where people can get in touch?
People can find me online. Kungfu.ai is our website. Obviously, reach out. My email is very simple. Ron, RON at kungfu.ai. If you're interested in AI, and we have a podcast called Hidden Layers, where every month we cover the latest breakthroughs, and we'll do a little bit of a deep dive on the technology, but we try to make it broadly applicable. Check that out if you're interested in that, and then I'm on all the the normal social media stuff.
Great. And thank you again for being here with me today, Ron. Really, I enjoyed the discussion. It's very enlightening, I think, for both business people and technologists as well. And, this is why the show is called CTO Show, right? So, because we try to bridge the business and tech together. So, thank you very much, Ron, for being here with me today. For the audience, everything will be in the show notes, so you don't have to look for. And this is usually how I end my episodes. This is for the audience. If you just discovered our podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give me a favor, subscribe, and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, thank you for all the support, for the feedback, for the comments. Thank you very much for taking the podcast this year. I'm repeating it every time, I know, but this is just a sign of, being grateful for my audience who, with their support, the podcast is trending in the top 200 chart on the Apple Podcast across multiple countries at the same time, 8 to be specific, hoping to reach the 9 and 10 marks very soon. And this cannot happen without all the support of you, my audience, and of course, all my guests, including your own also as well. So thank you very much. And as I say always, hope you enjoyed this episode today. We will have a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.